So I don't know if I showed you folks this. Maybe I have. It's gone through a couple of changes. This was made by Ida Kachet. And we're going to slow things down in terms of looking at these verbs. So the idea here is just to give us step way back and say, how do we start looking at verbs? And there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at. So the second edition of the beginning Tlingit workbook, we start by looking at object pronouns, and we start moving to subject pronouns, and not a whole lot of intensive work on classifiers or anything like that. But this one is kind of aimed at beginning Tlingit, but we just keep revisiting it. I'll probably show it to the intermediate Tlingit group maybe next week. And even if you have seen it before, it's just good practice to be able to predict what the verb form is going to be. Really, what we start with is there's a prefix and there's a stem. That's what you need to be able to put together, is predicting what the prefix will be, predicting what the stem will be. And it's this combination of factors that we're going to continue to come back to. The object pronoun, the thematic prefix, the subject pronoun, the classifier, and the stem, right? So the stem is all about containing meaning and then giving us what the vowel is. Usually short and high, long and low, long and high. Those are our three options. Then the prefix, transitivity. Who's doing it? Who's it happening to? Object, subject, object, subject, object, subject. The thematic business. So these are usually nouns that are built onto the verb. Ka and ya are the most common. Sha and sh are also pretty common. Ya, t, ka, sa, right? And then there's some that are kind of uncommon, like ah and ones like that. But they all have specific meaning, and then they start to alter the verb. Conjugating. So this is where you move it into the perfective, you move it into the future, you move it into a hortative, right? It's all going to happen right there. And then the classifier. Classifier really starts to fine tune what we're talking about the verb doing or being. It's something specific, somebody's doing it, you're doing it with something specific, right? So a couple things to keep in mind. Every verb will have a stem. Not every verb will have a prefix, which is kind of interesting, right? We write the 0, but it's just so people know that there's something there. But, I know Zeosh has been kind of going back and forth about the 0, and they're trying to potentially eliminate it and stuff. And it's always interesting. He informs a lot of my teaching and understanding of the language, and so does the dialogue that he and I have, and sometimes others, just about how does Tlingit work and how does it make sense to teach people the language. I think a prefix needs, if you're going to have a consonant, it's going to have a vowel. So that's kind of interesting too, as we start sort of looking at that stuff, because this came up last night because we saw wuch ischa, and that's not talking about you. That was just saying people started eating each other, right? Okay, so when we start looking at visuals of the verb, we could start with something like this. And I've got a bunch of different illustrations, a bunch of different things. I'm going to send some things to Zeosh. I'm going to make somebody holding up a protest sign that says passive, that'll be the anti-passive. And then I'm going to do, what was he talking about? Suppression. So I'm going to do that, find that little scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where the guy says, help, help, I'm being repressed. But he'll say, help, help, I'm being suppressed. And it's an object pronoun getting kicked out by the plus D. or just the D, sorry. But anyways, what we're looking at here is these areas, the preverb, the prefix, the stem. The prefix, I guess sometimes does include that stuff. And then what are the building blocks, the starting points for understanding a Tlingit verb? If you go all the way back to the preverb, which means here's some words that can appear before the verb, like chush, which means to the self, right? And it's different than this SH, right? And the way it can be different is if you say chush to it the shi, which is not a nice thing to say, but you could say it. But now that is a different one than this one, which would be like shidzatin, you see yourself. Chush to it the shi literally means go touch inside yourself, but you can figure out what that really means when you say it to people. Whoosh or whoosh in this spot, not whoosh in, not whoosh tin, but just whoosh or whoosh right before the verb means doing the verb to each other. Whoosh in, wutuwacha, we ate together. Whoosh, wutudacha, we ate each other, right? So there's sometimes a big difference between those. Did we do the thing together or did we do it to each other? Whoosh yekach tustin. The chush and the whoosh will push the classifier to be plus D if it's not already. Hus will pluralize either the third person object, the subject, or both. Then you have your set of object pronouns. Happen to me, happen to us, happen to you, happen to y'all, happen to them, happen to someone, happen to something, did it to myself. So that's your set of object pronouns. There's another one, ush. I'm not going to worry about that. That's the main character of a story. It's basically what ush is.
Can you go over the difference again and more examples maybe of the difference between the chush and the sh?
Yeah, so if chush is going to pop up, it's going to be a possessive pronoun, like chush to, chush in. So there's going to be something that follows it. Whereas this SH is just going to be an object pronoun, and so you can't have any other object pronoun there.
Okay.
So, for example, you could say, let me think of, anybody think of an example with chush in it, other than go do that to yourself? Oh, you could say chush in yuchachtatan. I was talking to myself.
So say that.
Chush in. You could say chush it chodeshi, which is a weird, I don't think you would ever say it. So there are some things like you could linguistically put that together, but culturally it doesn't make sense. For example, when I was getting samples from an elder and I said, Chat isachan. That's what I wanted him to say. But he was like, I don't want to say that. Why would I say that? And I was like, well, what if you're asking someone? He's like, I wouldn't ask somebody that. He's like, that's just, it was like you're trying to get someone else to think a certain way, like, love me, right? Or like, you know, but I said, we're just trying to show people how to do it just so that they're practicing. Because what you're really practicing is which one of these do you pick and which one of these do you pick? And what happens when you put them together? The SH is more like, this is going to be usually in combination with a subject pronoun, right? So like, we did it to ourselves, I did it to myself, you did it to yourself, y'all did it to yourselves, they did it to themselves, they all did it to them allselves.
Huh.
What's the other one? They say, chush toot it, no. Oh, I have to find that one. It's in my Yakutat phrases.
So Yayanaka, I was talking to myself. Chush in
Tush in yuch achdetan.
you.
Achdetan.
And this one is, it would be okay to say.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. It's not like saying, you love me.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay.
I find
Especially since we talk to ourselves all the time.
Yeah. During the pandemic and also just being a language learner of Tlingit, right? Sometimes you don't got people to talk to, right? I mean, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't.
I really need the concrete examples, I think, because I can go back to them and look at them and kind of pull them apart again. So I'm gonna.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and I'll try and put together some specific ones too. And so like, and I was talking about this one too, like wuchin ye jitudne. We're working together. So we're all collaborating. Wuch ye jitudne. We're working on each other. Like maybe we're robots and you're gonna fix my ear and I'll put your finger back on, or I don't know, maybe we're like, you know, working out some psychological mental health things. I don't know. But yeah, so the whoosh on its own is to each other. And it's also gonna push the classifier to go plus D. So there's a set of objects, me, us, you all, her, you know, them. I got to update this one. We're trying to transition to, at least I am, to just using them. It's a non-gendered term. So someone or people, something, and then the self. For subjects, these are the only ones that exist, I think. I, we, you, y'all, she, or them, they, and then someone or people. Okay.
How come ka doesn't have an accent on the A?
Yeah, so the only ka, well, whenever you look at all of these pronouns, the only ones that have a high tone are independent pronouns. Khat, wa'eh, hu, hus, uhan, yuhan, ka, at, all of them have high tones. All of them. Any other form of that pronoun, the possessive one, none. The object, none. The subject, they're all low tone. Good question. So whenever you say ka, tla, mothers, mothers of people, somebody's mother, that ka will be low. So if you're just saying people's things.
So ka there is people, but you change the accent because of what's around it.
No, if you're just saying like for this is like, it's a fourth person pronoun. So it means, for example, if I said, I love people. I love them, love people. I could say, I hate people. So that's literally what that means. It's not a single person, but when you pull this, like there is ka, which is a noun. That means a person or a man. But that's different than this one. Even though they sound the same, they are different.
Okay, and your subject is duh, and your object is ka or ka.
Yeah.
Or someone.
Yeah, and so these are, this is old. I gotta update this. So this should say fourth person human, fourth person non-human. So this means it happens to people, and this means someone is doing it or it happened. So in English, we use the fourth person. A lot of times if we just want to, especially if we're guilty, but we're trying to act innocent. Like if you brought a plate of cookies over and I just ate them all, And then you came in, you'd be like, where'd my cookies go? I'd be like, they were eaten, right? And so like, or kids will do this all the time. It broke, right? So they'll just remove the subject, or you'll say somebody, right? What happened? Somebody broke it. I don't know, someone broke it. And so this is used in Tlingit for lots of things. The fourth person subject is used for a lot of name, like to name a place, the place where this thing happens, the place where that thing happens, the way to do this. Ade teshliachiyeh, or ade teshliachiyeh, the way it is made, or that just something happened. It's also used to say like, duchayiat, it's edible. Heshtuchaat, it's not edible.
When you say teacher or ka'at shatuo, that's different than what we're talking about here, right?
Yes. So, but it is, this fourth person human has a possessive pronoun. So you'd say ka'i shatu or ku'at shatu. So, okay, sorry, ka'i at shatu or ku'at shatu. So when you have the in or the eat, like you could say, ach it idishe, help me. You could also say, ha it idishe, help people. And that's just this same concept as a possessive pronoun. So I could say, ka ayi awe, it's something that belongs to people, as opposed to maybe an animal's thing or something. So the thing that we're getting at here is there's a pronoun, like a first person, it's about me, the person, whoever's talking. Second person, whoever's getting talked to. A third person, this other person we're talking about. Then we can pluralize each of those. Then we have a fourth person, which is just somebody, right? And then when you say ku atlatu, teaches something to people. That's what it literally means. So that ka'i can become ku. Everybody okay? Any other questions?
I guess what I was trying to ask was, when you say ku'at shatuo, ku and at, are they the O here, and shatuo is the classifier and verb root?
So,
or is that just a sentence with only shatuo being the verb?
so you know there's a set of verbs where you say like blank in or blank eat, right? So you can say like ach in kananik, kunach ach eat yeshatu, ach eat ideshe. So any of them that have that e in there, that e is what we call an empty base. It only exists so you can put a suffix on a pronoun, because you can't say achde. You cannot say that, or achdach. So you have that e there. Achide, achit, achin. Those are the three ways you'll usually hear it when it pops up in front of a verb. So you could say achin, with me, ha'in, with us. This is a different set. This is a different set of pronouns. I could say i'in, with you, yi'in, with y'all, du'in, with them, husdu'in, with the plural them, ka'in, with people. So those are possessive pronouns. Achtla, hatla, itla, yitla, dutla, hastutla, hatla. So I could substitute body parts, kinship terms, or any of those eat, in, ide type of things. So that appears before the verb, ka, I, ut, and here's the ut in that ku at shatu, something, shatu, teaching something to people. But where it gets tricky is ka plus in can contract to kun. Does it make sense?
I don't understand it, but I can ask Ani.
Okay. Well, let's see. Hold on.
So on the ka-in can contract to kun. So the ah and the two e's together formula makes the o-o.
Yes. And I got a list of them somewhere. Hold on a second, I'll find it. Oh, I know where it is.
And are they possessive pronouns?
Yes.
Yeah.
Gwnaeth ti chne for all of your secret stuff.
So you guys can see a picture of me with no hair, but a baby. I was teaching in Carcross with Hian Wudakat. That was fun. So this one is about like these bases and suffixes. So let's step away from verbs. Let's just look at this stuff, okay? So you have these suffixes. These suffixes here talk about kind of where things are at and also where they might be going. So you have dach, which is from, or out of, or since, because they could refer to time. Dach can also contract to just the TX, like in qutch, like qutch ayanaha. That comes from qudach ayanaha. And then this could be just X, as in ach kegate, pick it up, okay? De is towards, or until that time. Nach is through or along. T is at, but it's usually arriving at, but it could just kind of sometimes be like around a place. W or is to be at, but it's usually used not directly connected to a verb. So gusu, yadu, right? This one is also at, but it usually means at rest or residing somewhere. And sometimes there won't be anything there, right? Hatuyeyati, right? It just goes away. Some people would prefer hatuyeyati, but either one is fine. And then this one is used in a lot of location verbs, like it's there. And this is also the time marker. Ta awe, natach, wehoots. The bears sleep in the wintertime, right? So, Naskiagi away on Wednesday. That's how you do time markers, right? And then this one is also at, but it usually means going there repeatedly or moving around. There's also an N, I guess I forgot that one. It means with. So I'm gonna skip ahead a bit and find this one. So a suffix can attach to a noun. Hit day, hit dach, right? A suffix can also attach to what I call a relational base. Ach chande, ach chandach, hit yide, hit yidach. So you can start putting these things together in combinations. One of those combinations is what we call the empty base. It only exists to put a pronoun onto a kinship term, a name, or a pronoun. Because you cannot put it, you can't say acht or achte or achtlade. You cannot say those things. It does not make sense in Tlingit. So you have this E thing. It doesn't mean anything. It's just there to put a suffix on. That's the only reason it exists. So now you have ach, I. So these are all the possessives. Ach is mine. I is your. Du is singular there. Ha is our. Ye is y'all's. Hastu is plural there. Then you could say ach kla, ach ish, and you can also say ka, ka-i, which I don't think I have on here. So here's some things that you can sometimes hear. Ach ide, ide, do ide, on down. This is how it'll work for anything that has in or eat will switch to ide in the future. Ach eat idishi, help me. Ach ide kakitishi, you're going to help me. Ide kakwatishi, I'm going to help you. Okay. Eat.
Stop.
Okay. No worries.
Go back. So the one before you said it changes with the conjugation
For the future.
for the future. Okay, so like the empty base will change. Okay.
Because if you think about it conceptually, ach eat idishi. That helping comes right to me.
Okay.
Ach in kananik. That telling is with me. And that's just how Tlingit thinks about it. But if it's in the future, it's not with me and it's not at me, but it will be.
It's on the way to being there.
Yes.
Sort of? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that, and
Okay.
one of the things that gets tricky is like all of these suffixes can mark time as well as location or direction. Okay. So we're going to take the claw away here and we're just going to make it claw. Or somebody, right? Let's say people for now. So if I said, and you might say that if you're raising children, not everything's commands. Just say, you're going to help people. And that's just sort of tell them how it's going to be, right? So this one, this is where we start to see contractions are possible. So here's achit, like, and a lot of us, we've learned this to say it in phrases. Achit dishi, ha, aqa awe to eat with dishi, and then they help them, right? And this eat means, on its own, it means to arrive to somebody, right? But it's usually just used more conceptually, linked to specific verbs. That's it right there. You're teaching arrive to me. And in Tlingit, it's just like some things, it's almost like they involve a bit of traveling, right? So achit can become chat. So if you listen to the old speakers when they're telling stories, that's how a lot of times they'll say it. And then they said to them, help me, help me. So this is one of the first places where we see a contraction happening. Otherwise, you have it eat, do eat, ha eat, ye eat, has to eat, ka eat, it ish eat. We kept the dad there. Oops. So you can also have the underline X, and this you would use for repetitive forms, right? Ayak away a jich to tea. atyawane. Everything has a spirit. That's why we give it respect. Okay, and that's this underline X. Like whenever you get into this, happens, they give it to me regularly. They tell me on a regular basis, right? And so this is dealing with mostly like habitual things. But if you start looking at like the verb database, you'll see like this one pops up, or it pops up in some thing. Oh, yeah. Oh, let me find it.
I was also wondering, does the verb change to the habitual form too? Repeated habitual? You change the pronoun and then you change the verb as well,
Yes,
right?
so the verb
have
will appear in either the repetitive imperfective or a habitual form.
Okay.
And I'll show you guys. Maybe. Oh, there it is. So here's that phrase I just said. And yeah, good question. So there was another question, says, do they all contract? No. In this case, this is the only one, and I'm not saying it can't, but this is the only one I've ever noticed is just the first person. In this case, you don't hear people say chach, so I don't think anything will contract in this case. They'll all stay as two separate words, right? Even though this one is made up of a base and a suffix. So here's one. That you have 3 potential contractions. Khan, pretty rare. Dune, just like that movie. And Poon. So here is one where you could have, but regularly you're going to have 2. Oh, yes, Ganashish. So let's put that one down there. Okay. Okay. So this one is with me. So you could say achin kananik, or you could say khan kananik. Ganashish khan ki aniki. Thank you for telling me. Okay, yeah, I'll put some examples together. We'll go through this again and we'll look at some examples so we could start learning how to use this thing, right? Yeah, ganashish. Oh, and here it is. Oh, I did have a slide with it. Hooray. I haven't looked at this slideshow for a long time. And I'll put a link to this specific slideshow up as well. So here, and this is where sometimes you're going to encounter on, and you're like, land? But it just doesn't make sense for land to be there, right? So you could say, oh, no, a koshahit. Like, hey, wait, they wrote on the land? No, they wrote with that. Maybe they're talking about like a pencil, or it could be something unusual too, like they wrote with a stick in the sand or whatever. Khan, Khat, Kun. Han and Dune, I just don't see them. It's possible, but I just don't see them. I haven't encountered them in any of the literature I've looked at, or I haven't heard people use them. Okay, good stuff. Questions? Everybody all right? Hanging in there?
In one of the Seidiya stories, doesn't she say un you something
Oh,
as
maybe.
a variant of een?
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, so like, and so sometimes you're just gonna get just E on its own. For example, you'll hear Cyril George. Yeah, too. That's how we were taught. Ha-e too. With just the E on its own, it's usually a high toned. Ha-e, for a lot of communities, will contract to ku. That's where the ku atlatu comes from. It seems to me, though, in Teslin, they prefer to say ka-e. Fun, good stuff. Back to here. But if you got questions or thoughts, feel free to share. So let's take a look at what happens when we start changing the subject, right? Cha, tu, I, ye, unmarked, and do. Okay? I do it, we do it, you do it, y'all do it, they do it, someone does it, or people do it. Okay. So let's take a look at this verb. This is the one we'll start with, eating. So here's what the theme looks like. The theme gives us all kinds of information, right? There is an object. There is a subject. It's a zero group classifier. Cha is the verb root that's open. There's multiple chas. The other one is to paddle, usually with people on both sides of a boat. If you're paddling back and forth, one person, that's a different type of paddle. It's a zero conjugation type. It's an act verb. Transitive just means there's both an object and a subject. This means for the subject to eat the object. Okay? This is a zero group classifier. For all of these examples, it's going to be either zero or ya. So, verb predictors, try and take turns. Somebody tell me how to say, eat it.
Aha.
Cha. Right, so there it is, cha. Right, so what you have here, if you put the symbols in there, it's a zero because it's a third person object, which is unmarked. You have, for the command, you do not put a subject marker in there unless the verb is plus D or if it's plural. The reason the subject marker must be there in the second person when it's plus D is because now you might just have a consonant there. So if you want to, shisa, rest, you couldn't just say shisa. It's impossible. You just can't say that. Here's first person.
And what about the plural for you all eat it?
It'll be yicha.
Yeah, okay,
All plural commands must be marked with the yi.
okay.
Other than that, if you're doing a command, it's always going to be a second person, right? Because you can't command a third person. It always will be second.
Darn
person.
it.
I guess you could command someone to command someone, but oh, goodness, sheesh, no way for finding that. Let's say Deya's story. Okay. I, you, them. Somebody tell me how to say, I am eating it.
Aha.
Cha-cha, right? So what we have here, here's the pattern. There's the subject marker. It's the classifier 0. And this is cha, short and high, just like it was here. So what we should be predicting is a classifier or a subject switch, everything else staying the same.
Hija. Hija.
What is atcha?
Hija. Hmm.
Yeah, was there a question or were we just predicting?
Predicting.
Okay, sheesh. So, hija, you are eating it, right? So this is I. But when there's I and nothing between it and the root, it'll go long. E.
Which one was atcha?
Okay, so atcha. So there's another verb, right? So there's a closely related verb. If this object pronoun just switches to ut, that means we're just talking about eating, right? So the difference would be you're sitting down with your kid and they're sitting there looking at their broccoli and it's time to eat the broccoli. Ha, eat it.
Mhm.
But if the kid's whining because I'm hungry, atcha, eat something. Eat. So atcha is a command for just eat. Or same thing if you're talking on the phone with someone, like, what are you doing? Atchacha, I'm eating. But if you say chacha, I'm eating it. So this is, there's a difference between these. In Tlingit, we pay attention to them because the verbs handle them in different ways.
Sheesh. I usually say atcha to the kids, so I had to check.
Yeah, so atcha would just be like, eat something, right? So you're just commanding someone to, but if you're saying, eat that thing, whatever it is, it's cha, just on its own.
Sheesh.
Good question. Whoops. Whoa, we went way too far ahead. Okay. Singular, they are eating it.
Acha.
Aha. Yeah, away. Gonna cheesh. I ate it.
Would you say chat cha or chat icha or chat acha? You put the what you're eating ahead of it and it makes sense?
Yeah, that's usually how you do it. There's a bit of flexibility in there. If you're naming two things, like if you were saying like, my mom's eating halibut, and if you wanted to specify that, then you would usually say achla chat acha. And there's a bit of word order thing there that's really interesting. I think Zeush was talking about this. The preference would go to be who's doing it, what's being eaten, and then it goes object, subject. Then we go into the verb itself. But yeah,
Get it in the wrong order. Can it make it so the halibut is eating your mother?
yeah. So if you said cha achla acha, because you're thinking, oh, well, the object comes first. But when you switch out to the nouns, the subject usually comes first. So if you said that, most speakers would be like, oh, no, right? Because like there's a halibut eating your mom.
You
Well,
don't,
that's good to know.
do you put a ch after tla to make it tlach?
You certainly could. So that's another way to take care of it. So you could say achlach with chach acha. So you could do that as well. Okay, good questions. How about I ate it?
Wacha.
Yep. So this is, if we go back, this is 0, open, perfective will be long and high.
Okay.
So now we know how that changes. This should be long and high all the way across. So how about you ate it?
Hija.
Iyacha. Okay. Sometimes you got two options for the second person perfective. Iya and ye. The zeros will usually be iya if it's a zero conjugation verb. The other ones will usually be ye. Ye ta, you slept. Iyacha, you ate it. Singular, they ate it.
Aha. Aha.
We're gonna have that perfective marker in there.
Ooh. Ayaha.
Not aya,
No. Okay. Excuse me.
but you're on the right track. One more time.
Awa.
Awacha, right? So awa, third person, it's a third person, it's still there, the it, right?
Would the second person plural be yiyaha?
Yicha,
Oh, just yiha.
and if
Okay.
you're from Teslin, yingcha.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, we just keep looking at it. Just keep looking at it. I will eat it. And when I do this at the beginning level, I just show them. But you guys aren't beginners.
Kakwaha.
Yeah, kakwacha. All the futures will be long and high. You will eat it.
Kukkicha.
Yeah, oh, kakicha or kukicha. I don't know if I got room for it. I don't have room for it. It's okay. But the second person, well, third person, first person, second person, third person singulars all have multiple ways to say it in the future. Because you could say kukwa or you could say kuka. You could say kaki or you could say kuki. You could say kukwa or you could say gukwa. You got options. If there's a vowel right before it, it will usually go to the short form. It will go to the short form. If you're from Teslin, this one will stay long. Kind of interesting.
She even has wuka.
Oh yeah, I don't even know. I can't even explain that one.
Yeah.
We'll save that one for advanced Tlingit. Yeah, wuka is something you'll also hear in Teslin, which is why I'm just stumped by it.
In Gagiha, where did the ya go?
Okay,
Or the W, how come there's none of that?
good question. So if you look at the little text here, this shows you what the classifier is. It's a 0 because there's no I. It's a 0, no I, because it's happening. It says there's an I only in the perfective form here because the I says it actually has happened. We're talking about it happening. So it has happened. The futures are always going to be, there's no I in the classifier. So the classifier is 0. Okay, last one. They, singular, are going to eat it.
Akwaha.
Akwacha, ye'aweh, gunchish. So we're going to come back a little bit later to also continue talking about how to put the future together. We did the perfective, but we'll keep practicing it. So we're just going to do this little grid for quite a few different verbs. And then we're going to switch to the negative forms. Don't do it, didn't do it, or not doing it, didn't do it, won't do it. We're going to see just how they change, how we're doing at predicting them, also pointing out a couple of just sort of rules on how they get put together as we practice doing so. But for Monday, I'll send you folks the printed version of the Untitled story, just the one that Jukatin told. We haven't transcribed and translated the second one, but those of you who are looking for transcription and translation projects, there's a good one, is that second story. If you want to listen to a Hainya speaker, a speaker from Prince of Wales. So we're going to talk about, so on Monday, we're going to try and say in Tlingit for a good solid 30, 45, 60 minutes. We're not going to be scared. We're not going to be judged. We're not going to get in any trouble. No walls are going to come down. Nothing's going to fall into the lake. It'll all be fine. Joya just Tlingit ani kach aya. Ikagushlatit. Get away with yesh. Yesh joya ka. Ya saka away to kla. So Raven said it to his mom when the world was flooding. You're going to be okay. You're just going to ride the waves. Because he put her into a duck. So I'm not going to put you in a duck, but you're going to be fine. So we're just going to speak some Tlingit on Monday. Yes, for the third person plural, just add has to any of the third person. Hasacha, hasawacha, hasakwacha. So we're just going to start on Monday by reflecting on the woodworm story, thinking of some things we may want to talk about. Klukwan, most of the crests we see in Klukwan, but it's also something used by Talkanadi. It's also something used. Koketan know that story. We're not trying to get into anybody's clan business. We're just using the language to talk about our histories, our stories, being Tlingit, being among Tlingit, speaking Tlingit. And then we're going to switch and we're going to talk about things we wish we knew how to do. So those are our two topic things for Monday. After that, we'll probably come back into this slideshow and keep going. I know we keep starting things and then jumping to other things, starting things, jumping to other things. So bear with me. I'm just trying to gauge the interests and levels of everybody and just move us on some trajectories through some stuff with examples. Cheesh.
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 Yakin.
Yakins. Ye whoosh gachtusteen.
Wushegachtustin. Yeah, what?
Cheesh.